Thank you for tuning in to Curious Cat, the podcast that examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. I'm your host, Jennifer Holtz. Join me every week as I explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit. Welcome to Curious Cat. I'm fresh off the heels from a magical visit with my eldest. Did our love and joy open up a rainbow portal? I'm not sure. What I know is I come away from our meaty conversations a better person. They brought up something I'd never heard the term for, but feels more important than ever to revitalize now. I'll explain, I promise. Let's get into it. Called third spaces. Let's start at the beginning. The definition of third spaces from Wikipedia. Quote, in sociology, the third place refers to the social surroundings that are separate from the two usual social environments of home, first place, and the workplace, second place. Examples of third places include churches, cafes, bars, clubs, libraries, gyms, bookstores, hackerspaces, stoops, parks, theaters, among others. In his book, The Great Good Place, published in 1989, Ray Oldenburg argues that third places are important for civil society, for democracy, civil engagement, and establishing feelings of a sense of place. Oldenburg calls one's first place the home, and the people the person lives with are included in that. The second place is the workplace, where people may actually spend most of their time. Third places, then, are anchors of community life and facilitate and foster broader, more creative interaction. In other words, your third place is where you relax in public, where you encounter familiar faces and make new acquaintances. From his book, The Great Good Place, he shares what he thinks the 8 characteristics are of a third place. Neutral ground. Occupants of third places have little to no obligation to be there. They are not tied down to the area financially, politically, legally, or otherwise, and are free to come and go as they please. Leveler or a leveling place. Third places put no importance on an individual's status in society. One's socioeconomic status does not matter in a third place, allowing for a sense of commonality among its occupants. There are no prerequisites or requirements that would prevent acceptance or participation in the third place. Conversation is the main activity. Playful and happy conversation is the main focus of activity in third places, although it is not required to be the only activity. The tone of conversation is usually lighthearted and humorous. Wit and good-natured playfulness are highly valued. 4. Accessibility and accommodation. Third places must be open and readily accessible to those who occupy them. They must also be accommodating, meaning they provide for the wants of their inhabitants, and all occupants must feel their needs have been fulfilled. 5. The regulars. Third places harbor a number of regulars that help give the space its tone and help set the mood and characteristics of the area. Regulars to third places also attract newcomers and are there to help someone new to the space feel welcome and accommodated. Number 6, a low profile. Third places are characteristically wholesome. The inside of a third place is without extravagance or grandiosity and has a cozy feeling. Third places are never snobby or pretentious and are accepting of all types of individuals from various different walks of life. Number 7, the mood is playful. The tone of conversation in third places is never marked with tension or hostility. Instead, third places have a playful nature, where witty conversation and frivolous banter are not only common but highly valued. And number 8, a home away from home. Occupants of third places will often have the same feelings of warmth, possession, and belonging as they would in their own homes. They feel a piece of themselves is rooted in the space and gain spiritual regeneration by spending time there. Here's some historical examples of third places. The term third place, which we talked about, was coined by sociologist Ray Oldenburg. Locales of this type have been identified throughout human history. Ancient Greek agora, the ancient agora of Athens. Ancient Greeks and their agora or public squares are among some of the first well-documented communal spaces that could be considered a third place. They served as marketplaces to exchange goods and currency or engage in political debate. These gatherings would host people from all walks of life, political figures, poets, philosophers, and common folk, subsets of people that wouldn't have otherwise interacted as part of their daily routine. Modern evolutions and derivations of the agora have remained prevalent in many subsequent civilizations. The term agoraphobia, or fear of open public spaces, originates from this Grecian meeting spot. Another, imperial Chinese tea houses, being defined as a separate physical sphere from one's home or place of work. Tea houses were prevalent third places in society. Tea evolved into a functionally social drink in the ancient Jin dynasty from the period 265 to 365 AD. These shops allowed businessmen to conduct meetings in a discreet manner. Time spent in these locations was used as a tool to show off one's status and ability to spend money on simple luxuries. Tea houses would come to function as central meeting places, an instrumental fixture in the nucleus of provincial towns. Another example, the European coffee house. Food and drink often have been closely associated with the idea of third spaces, being that they offer inciting motivation to attend, but wouldn't get in the way of conversation. Not dissimilar to tea houses, the increasing popularity of coffee houses during England's 17th century became societal staples for community building. According to a UNESCO article co-authored by Ray Oldenburg himself, quote, as places of free speech allowing a certain level of equality, coffee houses can be seen as the precursors of democracy, end quote. Coffee was a stimulant in contrast to the depressor that was the rampant alcohol consumption before this point in English history. Thus, these coffee houses became a real political arena. They were referred to as penny universities in the way that they enabled attendees to expose themselves to intellectual fervor with no financial barrier of entry. Following into the 21st century, coffee shops are still one of the most prevalent third spaces. These conversation hotspots have been reflected in media as hubs of human connection and belonging. Think about like Central Perk coffee shop, the fictional third space made famous by the sitcom Friends, or similarly, the Cheers bar made famous by the Boston-based sitcom. The unfortunate ongoing disappearance of third places from theweek.com is an article I found that I've got to share. According to theweek.com, people are losing the sublime art of hanging out. Written by Devika Rao writes, where do you go if you are not at school, work, or home? For some, the answer is, well, nowhere. With the growing cost of living, the prevalence of social media, and the residual social distancing mentality from the pandemic years, third places or locations designed for socialization have largely disappeared. This dearth of once common shared spaces is increasing loneliness, especially among the youth. Why are third places disappearing? Society is losing its places to chill. Third places, or spaces that are neither home nor work, but locations somewhere in between. Locations where we would bump into acquaintances, interact with strangers, or admittedly eavesdrop on them and chat with friends. Percolating ideas and plans, said the BBC. Some examples include coffee shops, libraries, bars, and parks. While these places have served important purposes, their presence is becoming rarer. For decades, Americans reported spending about 6.5 hours a week with friends. But from 2014 to 2019, it suddenly dropped by 37% to 4 hours a week, said Insider. Much of the shift can be attributed to the rise of social media and more recently, social distancing measures. Our relationships and responsibilities used to be easily compartmentalized. The intimate pieces at home and the professional at work, the BBC said. However, following the pandemic, the two sides folded into each other. And with our favorite hangouts banned, we've been stuck in environments that we equate only with work, either professional labor or domestic labor, with no place to let off steam or get some respite. Wow, my brain just kind of blew up there because it's no wonder we can't relax in our home space anymore, or it's challenging because we kind of intersected work with home, and now there's really no safe haven, is there? But back to the article. In addition, now we have on-demand streaming and social media, which are further extensions of that fundamental shift. Robert Putnam, author of Bowling Alone, said that to The Atlantic. Some argue that the internet itself has become a third place. Nonetheless, a lack of human connection has spawned a loneliness epidemic. It's a strange paradox. Gen Z are hyper-connected in the virtual world, but socially disconnected, said Forbes. The internet, mobile phones, and video games have opened a multiverse of new connections and opportunities. Yet digital interactions have failed to replace the need to connect on an emotional level in the physical world. How have third places shifted over time? The systematic restructuring of cities has greatly affected social spaces. If you look at most major American cities, you can see pretty extreme segregation between wealthy communities and poorer communities. Senator Tina Smith from Minnesota said to Insider, "Wealthy people live in places where they can have big gated houses and their own swimming pool and their own private park. In contrast, lower income and even middle income families find themselves living in places where there aren't enough trees, there aren't enough public spaces, whether it be the local swimming pool or a local park. With the shift, the limited third places have also become less conducive to just hanging out. Many spaces, like coffee shops, are either too expensive for the average American or apparently designed to disincentivize lingering," said The Atlantic. This is the consequence of a culture obsessed with productivity and status, whose subjects might have decent incomes but little recreational time. Because many Americans are working much longer work weeks, their time to solely relax and catch up, it can dwindle. The movement toward suburbia changed third places as well. As American cities were reshaped around the car in the early 20th century, streets became a lot less welcoming, said Insider. Cars also brought suburbia sprawl, highways that slashed through neighborhoods, and an environment that made it easier to isolate in a private vehicle than to walk, bike, or take mass transit. Suburbia also emphasized the nuclear family, with many people opting to spend time at home with close relatives rather than venture to third places to socialize. Still, all is not lost. Third places do remain, and making the effort to visit the existing third places will likely help create demand for more of them. Socializing is a learned skill, but the last time we learned it, we were probably little kids, Kathy Gouffre, a professor at Colorado College, said to The Atlantic. So be kind to yourself because you might be out of practice. We Should Get Together.com's blog that I found titled Hidden Barrier to Third Place and How to Overcome It brings us this. Frequently, third places are at coffee shops, bars, low-key restaurants, cafes, diners, bookstores, barbershops, hair salons, and bodegas. But third places can be free places too, like parks, plazas, libraries, skate parks, playgrounds, and sports fields. But just because an establishment is one of those types of businesses doesn't automatically make it a third place. For example, when I purchase a $7.50 oat milk latte at an excessively minimalistic and sterile coffee shop where identically modern and uncomfortable metal chairs practically shove me out of themselves and no one is talking because they all have earbuds in while they tap away on laptops or scroll on phones, and where I worry that making conversation or laughing half a decibel too loud would make every patron and staff person shoot daggers of side-eye in my direction, I am not in a third place. I'm on the set of an attractive Instagram photo, but this setting lacks the spirit and soul of a third place. An ode to third places I have known and loved. In college, in my early 20s, I had 2 third places, back streets, coffee houses, and bars, where I became a regular in my junior year. After graduation, I cemented my regular status by hosting a twice-monthly poetry reading there for 4 years, with countless visits sprinkled in between. My other third place was a variety store in town that had everything from rental DVDs, t-shirts, cards, posters, and most importantly, friends working behind the counter. Sometimes I just went to hang out and talk. Sometimes we held community meetings there. And for one delicious month, it served as the drop-off and communal dinner spot for a vegan cooking circle that 6 of us participated in. In my 30s, I had 4 third places. Freshies was open from early morning till late night and was within walking distance to where I lived, so I could hop in there 7 days a week, almost any time of day or evening, and find fellow neighbors and staff that I'd become friendly with. At the Lizard Lounge, I read books on quiet afternoons. I had my first astrology chart done there and later hosted a music and trivia night, DJ Cat Attack. When I lived in an intentional community with 125 plus other weirdos, our local third place was called The Point, and it was a small piece of land that dropped off into the Pacific Ocean below. Its only man-made features were a rustic wooden bench and a tree swing that someone made out of ropes and a piece of wood. The 4th third place was a weekly pizza night hosted at my friend Dave's house. An ever-rotating and unpredictable cast of attendees meant that there were always new people to meet and make pizzas with, and the possibility of running into someone you already liked. Dave created a third place in his kitchen. You can do this too. If you met someone there that you wanted to hang out with again, all you had to say was, "I'll see you next Thursday right here." In my 40s, my third place is, well, I haven't exactly found it yet because a global pandemic kept me in the house for the majority of the time since my 40th birthday. But now that I'm getting back out there, plugging into my next third place is a top priority. The latest contenders are a park I walk to almost every day and 2 microbreweries within biking distance. Each of these has the bones of a third place, but some of the additional ingredients are still a bit shaky. I didn't always have third places, but even in my restless teen years, I sought them out. I spent my middle and high school years marooned in suburbia in the classic American way. We had no cell phones, no public transportation. I did not have a car, and there weren't even sidewalks to safely walk once you stepped away from the main thoroughfares. When I got a bicycle and a friend with a car, we sped towards the closest third places that we suburban teens could find: Dunkin' Donuts, Taco Bell, Borders bookstore, and my friends' houses after school before any of our parents came home from work. In college, my main third places were the small, grassy, quiet quads surrounded on all sides by dorms and the art and design studios where me and the other artsy nerds hung out until they kicked us out to lock up for the night. Then I found back streets, and it was smooth sailing on the third place seas for the next decade or so. My third places were temples of belonging, self-expression, surprise, and connection, and I naively assumed that no matter where I went to live next, I'd always be able to plug into another one. I also assumed that everyone else had their third places too, but sadly, this is not true, especially for folks living in the United States. I want this for you. Yes, during January and February 2024, I coached a few dozen students in Platonic Action Lab to cultivate new and deeper connections in their lives. Third place awareness and third place cultivation are two of the many suggested activities I provided for my students because I know firsthand how powerful and life-changing they can be. I want every one of my students, followers, and readers like you to believe that you can seek, find, and create this for yourselves too. One of my recent Platonic Action Lab students was a guy who's enthusiastic about getting around on his bike. For his homework, he set out to do some research about potential third places that were bikeable from where he lived. He considers 4 miles to be a bikeable range. Before starting his research, he guessed that he might find 25 spaces. His research uncovered 23 parks, 15 coffee shops, 13 breweries and pubs, 4 co-working spaces, 4 community event venues, and 4 rec centers within 4 miles of his home. 63 places in total before you start skeptically scoffing that he must live in a trendy part of Brooklyn or something. I'll have you know that he lives in a small to medium-sized town with a population of only 100,000 people. All 63 of those establishments aren't automatically third places because we'll talk about the criteria later, but they all have the potential to be. Every person deserves a third place. You deserve a third place. You deserve not just one option, but multiple for places that could be your third or fourth or fifth place, where you can seek playful comfort and camaraderie whenever the stresses and boredom or work and home become too much. Even our favorite fictional characters on television have third places. Screenwriters know that characters' lives would seem too restrictive and boring without third places to break up the monotony and add both familiarity and an element of surprise. I mean, seriously, can you imagine if the plot of a character's life looked like some of ours? In this episode, Samantha wakes up and puts on yesterday's sweatpants, then walks to the living room where she works hunched over a laptop until the windows are dark. She then warms up frozen pizza for dinner before retiring back to the couch to scroll Netflix for 47 minutes before declaring to her houseplants that there's nothing to watch, then huffing off to bed. Roll credits. No, that's not how we will write a life story worth tuning into. Take some inspiration from the shows you watched growing up. Or in case of this bullet list, take some of the shows I watched when I was growing up. The teens on Saved by the Bell had The Max. Homer has Moe's. Seinfeld and crew had Monk's Cafe. The Beverly Hills 90210 kids had the Peach Pit. The gang on Friends had Central Perk. The core lessons all of these shows taught me were A, you're supposed to have friends. B, you're supposed to have a reliable hangout outside of your home where you regularly spend time with your friends to relax, to wisecrack, to meet new people, to talk about life life and be there for each other. So when you get to adulthood and realize that you're somehow supposed to make do without a third place in your neighborhood or in your life, an itty bitty cranky spiky form of loneliness starts scratching away at the corners. Something isn't right. It's like a sitcom that doesn't have a jingle. It just feels wrong, like something's missing, and something is indeed missing. The transitional spaces in your life between work and home, where you can easily scoop up buckets of connection with friends and friendly strangers. Where did our third places go? As I wrote about in my book, We Should Get Together, The Secret to Cultivating Better Friendships, in the 1920s, cities overtook rural areas as the place where most people lived and wanted to live. As the population swelled into a crowded and often festering density, the necessity of third places became immediately obvious, usually in the forms of bars and saloons. Although, let's be real, these places were just for men, and mostly white men at that. There were also plazas and town squares, and even the bustling street could function as a third place, as the bootleggers during Prohibition figured out, selling swigs from bottles hidden in their boots, and shooting the shit with anyone who wanted to hang out outside. Hanging out was what you did when you weren't grinding away in a gruesome factory or stuffed into a matchbox-sized apartment with your beloved wife and 37 children. So if you were a man, the saloon was where you went until Prohibition, when you either went to a church, a soda fountain, or a speakeasy. From what I've heard, the speakeasy was loads more fun when you weren't accidentally getting poisoned drinking methanol or getting raided by the cops. As time marched on, Prohibition was canceled because it was a ginormous failure. We got legal booze back. We got more cars and an automobile lobby and an oil and gas lobby. Later, mass adoption of automobiles shifted national and state priorities from designing spaces that worked for the needs of carless people to designing spaces that worked best for the needs of cars and the people devoted to them. Cue the suburbs. Also, white flight, but we're not going to get into that right now. Car culture with its parking minimums is one reason you don't have more third places. Even dense urban areas give away a tremendous amount of land to parking. In Paved Paradise, How Parking Explains the World, author Henry Grabar references a study showing that if 25% of New York City's curbside parking was reclaimed for other purposes, it would be enough land to create 13 new central parks, 500 miles of bus lanes, 38 million square feet of community spaces, better visibility at intersections, 5.4 million additional square feet for restaurants, businesses, and the arts, loading zones and trash collection space, and one full block for play and outdoor learning in front of every one of the city's 1,700 public schools. And as comfy cozy as the idea of third places is, it's inextricably tied to a topic that's as sterile and formulaic as you can get outside of an operating room, the bureaucratic halls of order that write and enforce zoning laws. As highways spread across the land, so did the rules about how to build the suburbs, exurbs, and strip malls that litter the space in between. Voila! Zoning laws, my friends, are an even bigger reason why your neighborhood is devoid of thriving, jubilant, numerous third places that you can easily walk to. Zoning was intended to bring order and structure, and sometimes racial segregation, if we're being honest, in the past, to the ways towns and cities are built. In some ways, it's looking out for you. For example, zoning makes sure that a polluting factory isn't located right next to a kid's school or your bedroom window. But zoning is also the reason why you'll rarely see a grocery store, cafe, cafe, bar, or restaurant on the ground floor of an apartment building or in a neighborhood of houses. Zoning was intended to protect people, but far too often, zoning is overly restrictive in its allegiance to order. Attempting to change zoning laws or even getting a single zoning variance, it can be expensive, it can be tiresome and demoralizing. It's because of zoning that we end up with labyrinth roads unfurling towards the horizon in an ocean of low-density single-family housing. It's because of zoning that we have apartment complexes with dozens of fortress-like buildings housing thousands of residents, yet there's no place to grab a drink or a sandwich where you can spend time chilling out with other residents. If you want to hang out together, you have to do it inside your apartment or jazz up an impersonal common area or get in your car and drive someplace. If you want to have a couple of drinks, then stumble home, you're not allowed to because someone decided it would be safer and better for you to drive home from a pub rather than have a pub within walking distance of your 900 square foot bungalow or 3-story apartment building in an area zoned as residential. If you want to meet the people living around you and there's no obvious outside of home gathering space for people to meet or mingle or bump into each other without planning 6 weeks in advance, well, you're on your own. We can't figure this out on our own, but it would be a lot easier if the built environment was designed to make that kind of connection natural, easy, and effortless. It's almost like our built environment was designed to guarantee frustration, loneliness, and isolation. And isn't it an interesting coincidence that when people are socially isolated, distrusting, and fearful of each other, it makes them easier to control? I wonder why anyone would want that, the author says. Anywho, listen, you deserve third places to gather. Find community, support, connection, solidarity, comfort, care, and joy. The countries we Americans love to visit all have them. The cafes in Paris, the pubs in the UK, the beer garden in Germany, the izakaya in Japan, plazas, tapas bars, and food halls in Spain, open-air street markets throughout Africa and Asia, oceanside malecons and tree-lined bench-filled boulevards all over Latin America. What kind of third place do you wish you had in your neighborhood? If I rubbed a multicolored bejeweled glass lamp at a yard sale and a genie popped out to give me 3 wishes, one of them would definitely be to wake up in the morning with nationwide, human-centric, creatively compassionate zoning guidelines instantly approved in cities that would provide people with ample third places, all within walking or non-vehicle rolling distance of everyone, along with free public transportation so reliable and comprehensive that you could go from coast to coast on transit without ever needing to check a transit schedule. I suppose that's 3 wishes right there, but if I cram them into one run-on sentence, can it count as one? Until municipal improvement wishes start magically materializing, we have to take connection into our own hands. This is one of the tenets that I've been instilling in every student enrolled in Platonic Action Lab. I want you to start believing this too. Connection is available to you in every cardinal direction if you're willing to search it out. Your spaces may be imperfect, but they belong to you. Your city and your neighborhoods belong to you and everyone around you. You are allowed to inhabit the spaces outside your front door. You are allowed to become a regular on your sidewalks, streets, parks, and local establishments. There is value in letting your face be a familiar sight. There is value in learning the names of the people who live and work near you. There is value in knowing what places are open near you, where you might discover that you feel more and more welcome and more comfortable in the more you show up there. There is value in believing that you can use a space in more than one way. You are allowed to talk to people. You are allowed to get to know the people living near you. You are usually allowed to hang signs and flyers. You are allowed to extend invitations. You can put them on phone poles and bulletin boards and in coffee shop windows if they say it's okay. And you can even post online about it if you want. You are allowed to draw on the sidewalk with chalk if your neighborhood doesn't have telephone poles for stapling a friendly announcement or invitation on. Do what you would do if you were having a yard sale. You are allowed to leave a friendly invitation on a neighbor's doorstep. You are allowed to tell people about your new club or event or gathering more than once because people are shy and afraid that they really want to come, but they might need more coaxing to trust that it will be a fun and safe and friendly vibe when they arrive. You are allowed to choose to belong in the places around you. You are allowed to really see who and what surrounds you. It's often far more interesting and affecting than whatever is on Netflix, no doubt. You are allowed to ask businesses if they'd be okay with you hosting a monthly thing there, if you want to get people together but feel nervous about bringing them into your home. You are allowed to have a little get-together in the driveway or front stoop if you feel too nervous to bring people into your home. You are allowed to put money in a parking meter and then use that space for whatever safe and legal activities you want for the duration of time that you've made it your own. You are allowed to live life differently than how the built environment that surrounds you dictates what your behavior and activities should be. The crazy thing about most third places is that they're places where monetary transactions might occur, but if you do it right, your monetary transaction will be the least important emotional experience you'll have there. We need to support our local businesses happily without our dollars for the value they bring to our lives. We need them to survive. So yeah, you're going to need to buy some of their stuff on a regular basis, but the space can be more than transactional. It needs to be if it will ever transform into a third place. And the people running these establishments have a surprising amount of control over whether that place becomes a third place or not. Their attitude and openness can transform a generic business into a third place. If they're not warm and welcoming, encouraging loyal customers to become regulars, and encouraging community building between their regulars and new faces alike, all they'll do is create an environment that's inhospitable, spiritless, boring, transactional, and unlikely to ever develop the soul that gives life to a third place. If you run a local business, please be the kind of business owner that encourages this kind of thriving and connection in your patrons and neighbors even. What to do if you want a third place? To find and create a third place. And remember, the quality of your presence is what helps to create it. You have to start somewhere. And I don't mean crawling back under the covers. I'm sorry, but if you'll need to leave the house, trust me, when this works, it will be so worth it. Get off your couch and pay very close attention to where you live and what potential third places you've been ignoring around you. Like my students did, become a detective in your community. Research a list of all the possible places that might have the potential to be a third place. Then start checking them out to see how they meet the Oldenburg criteria. Also, you can't just show up and be a passive observer, a receiver, a customer. You need to do this stuff. You need to do all of it to develop a sense of belonging. There's no need to dress up. As Oldenburg points out, nobody gets dressed up to go to their third place. Don't focus too much on looks. yours or the place's. Your future third place might even be a little plain or shabby, which means it will always accept you as you are, even in your sweatpants and baggy t-shirt. If you're truly in need of a third place and there's 0 places near you to function as one, you have the option to collect a crew of people and make a society of the traveling third places, wherein you each rotate minimal hosting duties at each other's abodes. Whenever you join a gathering that's not held at your place, consider that other place your temporary third place. This is clever because what you'll actually end up with are 2, 3, 4, 5, or more third places that are infused with the love and personality of the friends with whom you are running this collective experiment. In the third place, independent third spacery, you can get as creative with this as you want. When you host, you can make it a potluck. You can turn your living room into a temporary coffee shop. You can turn your kitchen into a panini cafe. You can turn your garage into a makeshift saloon like Ray Oldenburg did. Go for it. Get creative. Get cute. Game nights are great too. In the absence of abundant external third place options, you can try any of those ideas or remix them to create your own version. You can create makeshift third places in your and your friends' apartments, homes, mini communes. If you all happen to have the same commute, you can even turn your bus or train car into a third place. Writer Kate Vello ends her article with a message we need to listen to and heed, I think. We have to take action now because one of Oldenburg's predictions is already coming true about what happens to people who go too long without access to third place. They forget how to use it. They forget how to connect with each other in these spaces when they finally get access to them. They forget how to make conversation. They forget how to strike up a chat with a stranger. They forget how to trust. They forget how to play together in spirit and in conversation. They forget how to let themselves be fully alive in the presence of people who they're not close with yet. But by being fully alive in their shared presence, they make the closening easier and more relaxing to traverse. This is no recipe for an exhilarating future. So you know what to do. Get out there and start co-creating third place spaces in the spirit of the places around you. Oh, and one last tip before she goes, she says, if you live in a city in the United States, that means that you have a governor and a mayor and some city council members. Ask them to allow multi-use zoning in more areas so that the kinds of businesses that could become third places, aside from making life more convenient in general, can begin to pop up in areas that currently only allow residential use like houses or apartments. Dear reader, do you have a third place? What about the third places you've loved and lost? And what is a third place dream you hold for your present? What are you going to do to bring it to fruition? Love and kisses, Kat Vellos. I love that article. It's like a course right in one giant meaty article. So she mentioned this, the disappearance of third spaces, and I had to go deep on that. Where did they go? Did the global lockdowns of 2020 damage third spaces? Can we heed Kat Vello's advice and heal them, bring them back to 100%? I know we can. First, let's pop into our time machine. Remember 15 days to stop the spread. The months when track fields and parks were chained shut. Skate parks were sabotaged with sand. Churches were kept from meeting. School stopped. School sports ended. AA meetings ceased. Community centers were locked. Movie theaters were mothballed. I could go on and on. Those and all the others I neglected to list All those are third spaces. Our lives were put on pause to the detriment of our mental and physical health. Many of those spaces remain closed long after the slow opening of the country again. Some opened in the years after 2021, first with shorter hours, then with smaller groups of participants allowed inside. The reasons for this are complicated. People had a rough time coming back out, being with others. Do you remember how you felt on your first flight after the lockdowns? That first movie at a movie theater? The first visit to a mall? Hell, just going to the grocery store was a struggle session for me, and I'm speaking for myself here. Those experiences felt scary. They felt like too much, almost dangerous at first, and made me anxious for a while. In our societal slow creep back to normal, the third spaces, including the managers, struggle to pay utility bills, property taxes, find employees brave and consistent enough to keep the spaces open and spiffy and thriving, true heroes. As a result, some never bounced back. Others slowed their roll to a trickle. Another thing had a major impact on third spaces: technology. Expedited because of the necessity of a way to remotely meet, to hold classes, our computers and phone screens replaced physical classrooms. They replaced conferences, business centers, and laboratories, fitness training sessions, therapy visits, sports practices, and more. We substituted FaceTime for face-to-face time. And it's been my observation that when we interact as people behind a screen or crap behind a windshield of a car, we may not perceive others as quite human, full people with families and troubles and dreams and defeats. I'm going to explain from my experience. The first time I encountered and noticed this strange phenomenon was in Chicago in the early 2000s. I'd gone there to attend a concert with my girlfriends, and it was my first trip away from my baby, Nora. We'd rented a car, and from the moment we stepped into Illinois, the people we encountered were friendly, they were smart, they were funny, they were beautiful, the kind that would go out of their way to help you. But once I got behind the wheel, oh my God, suburbs, city, everything in between. Chicagoans as drivers were scary as hell, aggressive to the point of nearly hitting me as I merged. Horns were on blast, shaking fists, cussing, revving engines, all that and more. They think nothing of cutting off people. Outside of the car, compassionate people. Inside the car, yikes. It was so odd. It was strange. It was striking. The biggest confirmation I was onto something, though, occurred during the 2020 lockdown when online publications closed the comments on their articles. I look back at that as a turning point for our country. Do you remember it? Those comment sections had been informal third spaces. Almost overnight, though, and in tandem, they were shut down. Dead-ended. The universal explanation the publications gave was that comment feeds hurt their Google algorithms. The heart of Western culture lies in the right to free speech, the ability to talk and to converse in your opinion, my opinion. We crave a juicy conversation or a respectful debate. It's part of our DNA. To have it shut down like that was concerning and dehumanizing. Our human experience of Zooming or Skyping classes, meetings, yoga sessions added to that trend. Oh my God. In fact, what it ended up doing is isolating. It polarized us to a whole nother level. You had people that were meeting with each other on new forms of social media that were at the extremes of their political parties. And it became these weird bubbles and they echo chambers. They didn't get exposed to other ideas. And when they did, they were seen and perceived as threatening. It was really bad. So there is a magic to face-to-face. It's a good time right now to share something positive, not scary, and a space to share a message of hope and an urgent cry to get back to those third spaces, revive them, create new ones. In the days after the 9/11 attacks, things changed fast. A blanket of paranoia settled over the United States. The thought of traveling by plane felt risky, vulnerable, and strangers felt menacing. This paranoia had a keen impact on the Muslim community. Well, in the weeks after the attacks, a brave woman posted on the Kirkland community page on Facebook that she had to do something right now. She said each Friday, for however long it took, she would be hosting Meet a Muslim coffees at local places. Genius. I went to the first one, which was held in a busy Starbucks off of 85th. There were a handful of people that showed up. She introduced herself, which then the rest of us did after her. Some people sipped coffee, others didn't, and we just shared space. I went to one other a month or so later. I'm guessing it was like 5 or 6 weeks. The time didn't work well with my daughter's school schedule, but it grew. The group did, and it grew fast. It turned into a larger and larger group of friends. If you'd wandered in off the street, that's what you would have assumed the group was. A group of friends, a book club, or a mom's meeting. Good vibes only before we said that type of thing. How brilliant was that? This brave woman took action to humanize the Muslim community instead of it festering in people's minds, growing unchecked like a hungry tumor fed by mainstream media for the fear clicks. It was magic. Face-to-face magic. The idea of a Muslim seemed menacing to some people. Real Muslim? Lovely, real, normal, wonderful. Can't wait to see them again. My friend, you might have stories of your own when you felt the face-to-face magic happen. A family member that lets the world know they're homophobic, but then a child in the family comes out and that worldview. I have seen this happen so often. It causes a crack to form in their icy heart, and then love grows there. When the family member finds a partner and they are damn awesome, more magic, more love, more growth, less fear and less hate, maybe even no hate at all. What happened? They had some nebulous idea in their head, and it was blasted to bits by a real face-to-face with someone they loved. That's magic. Magic happens when we come in contact with people outside of our stupid clickbait headlines, our stupid inflammatory rhetoric, our sick and disgusting propaganda that sucks our souls. I hope your spidey sense goes off when you find yourself repeating the same descriptors for a group or individual as the media uses, by the way. That is a huge tell. Here's another instance in my life, a moment I watched the boogeyman in my grandmother's mind scramble for the exits and disappear for good. My grandma Sneezik from Chicago was a bookend to my schooling. She was in the back of the room on my very first day of kindergarten in Richland, Washington, and in attendance at my Pasco High School graduation 13 years later across the Columbia River. After that ceremony, my friends and I met up at my house before the grad party that night. I didn't think about it back then, but for purposes of illustration today, if we had put our hands together, our skin would have been a gorgeous palette of browns, tans, and whites. That is the beauty of Pasco, my hometown, our diversity. Well, as we gathered in the kitchen for snacks, I introduced everyone to Grandma. She had an extra bright smile for my friend Alfredo, and she asked him, "You're Catholic too, aren't you?" He nodded, and they bonded over religion. Grandma was polite. She was kind and complimentary to my friends. She was gracious and sweet, mind you, and she was never known for being sweet, not ever. She told me, "Jennifer, your friends are wonderful," which I know. A few days later, while we were driving to the airport, my grandma said, "That's the closest I've been to a black man." It was said to herself, but because I sat next to her in the car, I heard it. I was confused. I thought she was trying to remember the name of some of my friends. I asked, "Anthony? He's fantastic." She repeated, "Yes, he seems it. And he's handsome. I've never been that close to a black man before," she repeated, but with a softness, a hushed sweetness. "You mean as in physically in the same room?" I was shocked. "Yes," she explained. "In Chicago, we're sort of separated by neighborhoods. If you know someone's town, you can tell if they're Polish Catholic, Irish Catholic, Swedish, whatever, block by block." As we neared the airport, she said, "Your friends are wonderful, Jennifer. All the fret, all the worry, concern, silent wondering if we were all different. All those years, it just evaporated, and it made room for a new mindset that people are people, period." As she boarded the plane, I knew I'd witnessed an exorcism, and that's the power of third spaces. My kitchen had been an impromptu third space for Grandma. The high school gym had been as well, a place where a gorgeous, diverse group of grads came together with their loved ones to celebrate a huge achievement. Before we close, this episode comes on the heels of an election. Half of the people listening will be elated at the results. The other half, not so much. They might feel hurt, they might be angry, and they may be afraid. I'm not telling you how to feel or that your feelings are not valid. They are. What I promise is, as I've made a conscious decision to be in the run-up to the election, I will continue to be arms of comfort, eyes to see you, and will continue doing secret acts of kindness to seed hope and love with a focus on a future that doesn't set personal happiness on a 4-year roller coaster, but instead consistent, authentic affection and prayers of peace. I hope for a day when I don't catch people at my local store having to put groceries back, when the cash register total is more than the dollars in their hand. I'm sorry, I'm crying. I am determined to love everyone, to smother fear and anxiety with compassion, no matter the outcome. That's me, though. You do you. What I do know is that because of post 9/11, I know we will be fine, and the magic salve of healing just might be hidden in third spaces. Hang on for another installment of The Curious Q after the music. Until next week, stay curious. I love you. Thanks for tuning in to The Curious Q, a quick rundown of the week's weirdest headlines. From coast to coast comes this headline: strange doorway in Antarctica spotted on Google Maps. Tim Banal writes, a peculiar image from Google Maps shows what appears to be a rather sizable doorway inexplicably located in Antarctica, originally discovered earlier this year by an anomaly hunter who posted the photo to Reddit. The mysterious formation found new life this week when the weird find began circulating online again, located at the coordinates of 69 degrees. And, well, I'll put those in the show notes. The curious rectangular-shaped oddity has spawned all manner of theories on social media. Unsurprisingly, many of those suggestions center around the perceived passageway being the entrance to a fantastic location, such as an alien base, a secret military installation, or even another dimension. Alas, those wondrous explanations are incorrect, as experts say the puzzling doorway has a scientific explanation. Speaking to the Daily Mail, glaciology professor Bethan Davies said the environmental conditions of the area where the formation is located led her to conclude that this is an iceberg that became grounded and is now stuck and melting out in situ. That conclusion was supported by glaciologist Martin Seigert, who called the anomaly an interesting pattern, but not unusual or surprising. Despite their debunking of the doorway, given the nature of the internet, one can safely assume that this is not the last time the picture of the perceived portal will wind up circulating online and inspire wonder in those unaware of what it really is. Check out the image with the link in the show notes where one commentator says, "Yeah, that's the entrance to Club Penguin." And another says, "Door fell off a Boeing plane, lol." The next headline is courtesy of The Guardian, which reads, "Mysterious gooey blobs washed up on Canada beaches baffle experts." Subtitled, "Residents and marine scientists unable to identify pale masses as myriad theories are blown out of the water." They are slimy on the outside, firm and spongy on the inside, and surprisingly combustible. And in recent months, they have been washing up on the shores of Newfoundland. The depths of the Atlantic have long held mysteries, but the riddle of the mysterious white blobs spotted on the beaches of the eastern Canadian province has baffled both residents and marine scientists. Broader attention was first drawn to the blobs by a post on the Beachcombers of Newfoundland and Labrador Facebook group, a 40,000 member page largely devoted to the collection of sea glass. A man named Philip Grace uploaded an image of the pale, gooey mass, which he compared to the dough used to make Teutons, a Newfoundland fried delicacy. I hope I said that right. Grace's post about the blobs, which he said ranged in size from dinner plates right down to a toonie, the Canadian $2 coin, prompted a frenzy of possible explanations. Paraffin wax, sea sponges, mold, none of which withstood closer scrutiny. Dave McGrath, a resident of Patrick's Cove, was on the beach when he spotted just hundreds of them scattered in the sand. They look just like a pancake before you flip it over, when it has those dimpled little bubbles. "I poked a couple with a stick and they were spongy and firm inside," he said. "I've lived here for 67 years and I've never seen anything like this. Never." They sent the Coast Guard over and I asked them how bad it was. They told me they had 46 kilometers of coastline littered with this stuff and had no idea what it was, said McGrath. "Is it toxic? Is it safe for people to touch?" The gooey shapes aren't the first blobs to excite the locals. In 2001, residents discovered the Fortune Bay blobster, a sea monster that had washed ashore, a ragged and oozing white mass. Months later, however, researchers at Memorial University of Newfoundland concluded it was part of a decomposing sperm whale corpse. These new blobs don't appear to be linked to whales, despite commenters in the Beachcombers group suggesting they could be whale boogers or whale sperm or whale vomit, all of which have been ruled out. McGrath speculated that the substance could be discharged from ships traveling to and from the Come By Chance refinery, which is 80 kilometers north of Patrick's Cove. Federal scientists have also been on the case, but have produced few leads. So far, they know more about what it's not than what it is. It's not a petroleum hydrocarbon, a petroleum lubricant, or a biofuel. A full battery of tests could take months. An answer would be nice. It's not often you find something that stumps people who know this place and these waters, said McGrath. Until then, one local had a suggestion to those curious about what the blob might be. Fry it up, put some molasses on it. Let us know how it was. I don't recommend that. And it reminds me, it's a perfect segue to next week's episode, where we're going to dive headfirst into weather manipulation, where a lot of these blobs and globs on the ocean are residual evidence of possible human-made weather manipulation tools. And we're going to talk about using dragons to save us from hurricanes. Until then, thanks for listening to The Curious Q. Keep it weird. I love you.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Are you looking for a new podcast that appeals to your scientific curiosity, but is also a little bit spooky?
Show me how I died in a past life.
Well, look no further, because this cat is where it's at.
He had concerns about the ethics surrounding AI, feeling they had achieved consciousness.
Curious Cat Podcast examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. Listen every week with your host, Jennifer Holtz, as she and her guests explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit.
We were healing karma together. They were all kind of predestined to resolve something.
Listen on all your favorite streaming apps and continue the conversation on Twitter at CuriousCatPodCA, or find Jennifer and all her links at Jennifer L. Holtz, spelled HOTES.com.